Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Play On podcast, and this is a special episode as we are previewing the beginning of the All Ireland Hurling Championship for 2021, and we have three cracking games on this weekend: Waterford against Clare, Dublin against Antrim, and Wexford against Laois. The first game we're going to have a look at is Waterford against Clare. I have Luke here with me to preview all these games. Luke, how's it going?
All good, James. Looking forward to a bit of championship action now. Yeah, it's really exciting kind of coming up, and like particularly these games at the weekend as well. Some of them very hard to call, and yeah, this first one that we're gonna have a look at here now as well could really go either way.
Yeah, so how we're going to do this is we're going to have an in-depth look at each of these games, and then we're going to give our prediction as things stand now as who we think is going to win both the Munster and Leinster Championship, and inevitably then predict who we think is going to win the All Ireland Championship for 2021. So definitely, I think the toughest game to call over the weekend is Waterford against Clare. I think that at the start of the league, the way that Waterford and Clare started off, there were different starts there for both teams. I know that both teams started off with a defeat, where Clare looked particularly on the ropes at the start of the league campaign. Waterford seemed to have come out of the league weaker than they went in, and Clare seem to have come out of the league stronger than they went in, because now Clare have a bit of an identity, a bit of a structure in their team, whereas Waterford, the injury losses, like we mentioned on a previous podcast, we mentioned Conor Prunty's gone, Tyke de Burke's gone, Austin Gleeson's gone. Massive losses for Waterford. And as for Clare, they're pretty much full strength.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because like Waterford got decimated with injuries there in that last game of the league against Tip. But then at the same time, they got over the line in that game, looked really good. And even with all the lads gone injured, Shane Fives as well gone, they look very impressive in that second half. And their forward line still kind of remains untouched, and it's still very strong. You look at all the three Bennetts kind of up there: Desi Hutchinson, Jack Fagan, and Jack Prendergast as well. Like it's a really good forward line. So it's very hard to know. And like you've touched on it with Clare, kind of after kind of a tough enough opening fixture, they really turned around the league, and they were absolutely flying by the end of it. So yeah, it will take kind of brave man to confidently predict which way this one's going to go.
Yeah, I just think that momentum is such a huge thing in sports, and actually it's at a precarious spot now because both sides are coming into this with good momentum. But I think Waterford's momentum is a bit more checked because of the injuries. Clare, it seems to all be coming together for them at the right time. I know that the injury niggle to David McInerney, and that could be a bit of a blow, but I think compare that to Waterford's injuries, it's non-existent. Just one thing that I said in week one of the podcast, and I wonder now with the injury to Conor Prunty, does Liam Cahill regret leaving Noel Connors out of his panel? Because in my mind, if Noel Connors, he's in his early 30s, the amount of experience that this guy has, and now that Prunty's gone, if Noel Connors was there, I think he should be starting for Waterford cornerback. I still think he's a world-class hurler. And I think Connors could just slot into fullback if Conor Prunty was out. But now that he's ostracised him from the squad, it's definitely too late to bring him back now. I wonder if he's regretting making that decision now.
Look, it's an interesting one because I don't know. There's been a bit of talk kind of during the week that Prunty might be coming back into this now. He might be out there playing, but it's like he absolutely won't be fully fit anyway, and that is a huge loss. Like it's when you're looking kind of at the replacements. Like Waterford don't really have a natural fullback replacement in there, so it's like if he doesn't play, then I don't know, does Conor Gleeson go back in there maybe? But it's I think it's a huge kind of the outcome of this game is going to be hugely reliant on whether he's there or not. Like they do have other options, fellas that can step up. Like Yerla Daly will probably go back centre half back, and they'll have Kevin Moran beside him, Caleb Lyons, so he should be fine with that. And then they're strong enough everywhere else, so I think they can absorb the losses. I think it's just a matter of if they can get Prunty out there, I think they're in great shape. So yeah, that's the big question ahead of the weekend. It's kind of the big unknown. We're not at a stage, we don't have team sheets just yet. So that's the one I think to look out for, and that will probably be what will hinge my prediction this game is Conor Prunty's availability for it.
Yeah, I think a massive battle as well is John Conlon at centre half back now. This would be his first championship game playing as number 6. He looked very promising coming towards the end of the league at centre half back, but obviously championship, it's going to step up another level. And yeah, he's massive for Clare. Like he's been their rock at the heart of their defence now, with Conor Cleary behind him at fullback, looking very impressive as well. And that's freed up Shanahan at the other end. I think Shanahan will have a massive impact on this game, because if Prunty's there, as you were saying, but if Prunty isn't fully fit, then Shanahan could be a massive player for Clare in this game, because if he can expose that Prunty isn't fully fit and take full advantage of it and bang in a couple of goals, say, for Clare, that could really turn the tide on Waterford.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like, we haven't even got into the Tony Kellys and Aidan McCarthy's beside him as well in that forward line. That forward line is doing, like, they've been causing absolute havoc. Like, they looked at them putting 4 goals past Kilkenny there at the last game of the league. And that's Kilkenny defence have been playing very, very well. So it's that's probably a little bit ominous, I think, for Waterford going forward, is that they haven't been, like, watertight defensively, and this Clare team looks like they could score as many goals as they want right now.
Yeah, that's a huge threat, because Waterford are a bit vulnerable at the back, and they're coming up against the Clare forward line that are definitely goal hungry. Like Shanahan, Ryan Taylor, particularly Shane O'Donnell. We know how much these guys love to hit the back of the net, and if Waterford are a bit vulnerable to it, I think Clare might just go right from the off. And yeah, to be honest, the more I talk about it, the more I'm nudging towards Clare a little bit here, because I think they're just going to blitz them for goals, and Waterford will tap over 25 plus points, but I think Clare will hit 4 goals. Yeah, I think that could be the separator between the two teams.
Yeah, but I think, though, as well, to be fair, since Liam Cahill came in, I think as a goal threat, I think Waterford have got an awful lot better. Like, and you look at the forward line, Desi Hutchinson seems to be scoring 2 goals, 2 points every game now at this stage. So I think there's going to be a huge amount of goals in this game, and I think it's going to be a complete shootout. And in a kind of similar pattern to the league, I wouldn't be surprised if you had about maybe over 6 goals in this game.
Yeah, definitely. I think this game is set up to be an absolute. I think it's set up to be a classic. To be honest, the form that they're both coming in on, even though there only is a few fans allowed in the stadium, the noise that they're going to bring will make it feel like a championship match for the players. And yeah, we'll just have a special feel to it this game. We're back in championship, having felt like, through the lockdown of, last year's winter, that we would never, see this day. It felt like it sometimes, but yeah, here we are. And yeah, I think both teams will just go out there and enjoy themselves, to be honest. And yeah, you'd be a brave man to select a team. I know that I've kind of nudged towards Clare, but it absolutely would not surprise me at all if Waterford win this game. They have developed a hell of a lot of resilience under Liam Cahill. That was on evident. That was on show against Kilkenny last year in the All Ireland semi-final when they came back from that huge deficit. And yeah, to be honest, it's very hard to call. My whole thing is, if you were Liam Cahill, what do you do about Tony Kelly? Do you man mark him? Do you try and, how do you curb his influence?
I think Caleb Lyons is going to pick him up. I think Caleb Lyons is going to go wherever Tony Kelly went. And I know kind of last year in the game between the two sides, kind of Tony Kelly picked up that injury early on and kind of played on for a while, but it was like complete like non-factor in the game really. So I do think the Caleb Lyons will be on him again though. So he'll be hugely dependent on that. But if you look kind of the last game, that was Shanahan went to absolute town in that game. So I think that's the worry for Waterford, is that a team that kind of ships a lot of goals, like they really, really need to sort that out. And Shanahan is going to be the big problem, I think, for them there. So they just need to keep him quiet. And and then you can expect the usual kind of 12 to 15 points from Tony Kelly, maybe with a goal thrown in.
Yeah, definitely. And on the flip side of that, Stephen Bennett's influence for Waterford will be absolutely massive again. I think between Bennett and maybe Desi Hutchinson, I think those two will, in my mind, decide, because they're going to do the majority of the scoring for Waterford. And if they have an off day, I think it's pretty simple that Clare will win.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Shane Bennett is back in full forward now. He played very, very well the last time, and they have a few players there now that are kind of stepping up into the it was for a while there. It was kind of looking like it was all reliant on Stephen Bennett for all the scores, but I think some of the tallies they've been putting up lately have been absolutely huge as well. So I'm probably going to go the opposite way to you, and I think Waterford are going to get over the line in this, but in a shootout. I just think they've had the edge over Clare kind of the last few years. Like look at the championship last year, that they definitely had the edge over them. It was very, very comfortable. I know Tony Kelly with the injury and stuff like that. But that was a really resounding win. And I know there have a few injuries kind of going into it, but I just think Liam Cahill's team kind of have the mental kind of edge over them at the moment, and I fully expect them to win maybe by a point or two.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting, game, and I think both of us are right in our reasons for thinking that the different teams are going to win. I think a full strength Waterford beats a full strength Clare, but my reason for believing that Clare are going to win is that Waterford are not anywhere near full strength right now, and I actually think that if Prunty plays, if he's not fit, he'll be more of a liability than someone who maybe isn't a natural fullback.
Yeah. I completely understand that argument as well. So yeah, like that's the thing, is it is hugely reliant on that. And I suppose Liam Cahill will have been working tirelessly to kind of come up with a solution.
Yeah, definitely. So we've picked, one of us is going to be right and one of us is going to be wrong on the weekend. And so whichever team goes on, who do you think now is going to win the Munster Championship?
Well, I still think that Limerick are best place to win it. I know on the other side of the draw, it's going to be the winner of the game of the weekend between Clare and Waterford play Tipperary. So yeah, it's kind of hard to know. I'm looking at the team right now. I'm not sure if Tip are exactly where they want to be. So I'd fancy the winner of this quarterfinal to beat Tip and get to a Munster final. And then I think they'll be playing Limerick in the final, where I think Limerick are slowly kind of working their way back to their best. So I think by then, I think Limerick will be fully firing and win another Munster.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Limerick are just too strong, to be honest, this year. The level of, ability that they have in their panel, and they've seemed to have added, more stars than the likes of Colin Coughlin. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Limerick to win the Munster Championship for 2021. And yeah, so moving on from that game now, we'll move on to Dublin against Antrim. This is another game which is very 50-50, very in the balance. Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know. I would go with Dublin to win this game, but I definitely think it's a banana skin for Dublin if they're not careful.
Yeah, I think after the original game in the league, you probably would have been, from Dublin perspective, you would have probably been confident that you could fend Antrim off, especially in Parnell. But kind of, if you look at the late form in the league, you'd be a bit more worried. Kind of Dublin very poor end to the league, kind of, and then Antrim kind of continue to grind out some really impressive results. So yeah, I do think Parnell Park kind of factor will be pretty important, and I think that could nearly be the deciding factor, and then maybe getting over the line by a point or two. But because I'm really not too optimistic about where Dublin are this year, and even if they overcome Antrim, I can't see them going much further at all really this season. So yeah, this is definitely kind of one to watch at the weekend, and given the right circumstances, it would definitely not be a surprise to see Antrim get a result here.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Dublin have to select the right lineup as well. I think Conor Burke has to start in midfield because Antrim are so strong in there with the likes of Keelan Malloy. I think Conor Burke has to go in midfield. No more just messing around with him in the half-back line. Dublin are strong enough there. Burke needs to go into midfield, in my opinion, to pick up Keelan Malloy, because Keelan Malloy, in my view, I agree with you. I think he was the player of the league. He was outstanding for Antrim show every game that they played. And then in the forwards as well, Neil McManus, James McNaughton, Niall McKenna, Conor Clark, these guys are going to have huge says on this game. And to be honest, they're more natural forwards and more kind of deadly forwards than Dublin have. I know Donald Burke is a very good inside forward, but he seems to carry a lot of the can on his own. I think Dublin do have a little bit of a mentality about them, which I like, that they're not going to lose to Antrim. They had this kind of element of, we're not going to lose to Antrim about the league game. But I think they have to be careful not to underestimate Antrim, because let's not forget that Wexford kind of beat Dublin comfortably enough down at Wexford Park, and then Wexford went up to Antrim and were very lucky not to lose, got a draw out of that game. So my question to you is just how much is Parnell Park an influence on this game? Because, how much better are Antrim at home than down in Dublin?
Yeah, well, I think if you look back at the Parnell Park game, Kieran Clark had a really tough start to the day in the freeze, missed an awful lot of frees, and that was kind of a real kind of issue for Antrim today, was all the missed frees, and they lost by 7, I think it was, in the end. And yeah, on another day, those frees go over earlier. Could have been a lot tighter that game, but Dublin were kind of comfortable in that. So yeah, it is a tough one to predict. I know a lot of people would probably be saying Antrim after kind of form. Antrim did finish ahead of Dublin in the league as well. It's important to note. And yeah, I still do think that come a championship game, I would expect Dublin to just about come out on top though.
Yeah, I'm putting my neck on the line. I'm saying that Dublin are going to beat Antrim and move on to the next round. And if they do, they're going to play against Galway. That will be on one side of the Leinster draw, and the other side, Wexford against Laois is the first game taking place. That's also taking place this weekend, and the winner of this goes on to play against Kilkenny. How do you see this Wexford Laois game going?
Yeah, again, I think similar pattern to the league game that we saw, where maybe Laois will keep it tight for the first half an hour, and then Wexford are going to run away with it in the end. I think, like Wexford they again didn't have the greatest league campaign. Like they finished second in the group without being really kind of impressive at all. So it was kind of a strange kind of campaign. Davy Fitz will be suspended for this. So it'd be interesting to see if they get a bit of a bounce, kind of like the siege mentality, kind of if that kicks in. But yeah, I would expect them to be between 10 and 15 point winners of the weekend.
Yeah, I think that if Wexford are in any way serious about bouncing back after their disaster of a year last year, I think they ought to beat Laois out the gate, because Laois are definitely looking vulnerable, losing every game that they played in the league. They haven't won a game yet in 2021, and I think that trend is going to continue. I don't think they're going to beat Wexford. I think Wexford will beat them comfortably enough. But I think both sides of the draw, regardless of whether Dublin, Antrim, Wexford or Laois win, I think they're all going to lose to Galway and Kilkenny respectively. And we're going to end up with a Galway-Kilkenny-Leinster final, which would also double as a league final. And yeah, who do you think would win the Leinster Championship from this position?
Yeah, like you're saying, like Galway, Dublin in semi-final, like you can only see one winner, like comfortably would be Galway. And then I would back, Kilkenny to beat Wexford in a tighter game than that. Maybe these games between Davy and Cody usually tend up to be kind of not too like kind of close games and stuff like that. And I fully expect that trend to continue. But yeah, I would probably back Kilkenny to come out on top. And then Leinster final, kind of repeat of last year. I don't think Galway get caught the same way they did last year. They'll have learned their lessons from it. And I think their panel's just too strong kind of at the moment. And I see them as like serious kind of candidates to challenge Limerick this year. So yeah, on that basis, I suppose I'd have to go with them as my favourites for Leinster and kind of National League then as well.
Yeah, and that would be a massive year for them to win both titles like that, and then to go on and challenge for the All Ireland. So yeah, I think as well, me personally, I think Galway have enough in the tank to get the job done, having been hurt by what happened last year. I think that they are like right up there with the best teams in the country for the squad that they have, for the talent and ability that they have, and just the size of some of their players. Absolutely amazing how big some of them are. And yeah, to be honest, I think that they're well in touch for an All Ireland shot, to be honest, which brings me on to this. So we've picked Galway to win Leinster, and we've picked Limerick to win Munster, which obviously gets us to our All Ireland stage. Right now, it's so hard to say who's going to win the All Ireland, because everything can change in a heartbeat. Like for Limerick, for example, like Cian Lynch could get injured, like Gerard Hegarty could not come back half the player he was last year. There is the element of the unknowns. But right now, if you had to put money down, who would you pick to win the All Ireland this year?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, like, obviously, there, as opposed to the football, there is still the qualifier run this year, and teams can build momentum that way. So, like, if you're looking at a situation where we predicted Kilkenny and Tip being knocked out, kind of in their provincial championships, that they will have had the opportunity to play a few more games, get a bit more legs into them, and gain some momentum. So like you can't discount them from the conversation, I feel like, just yet. But yeah, I think everybody kind of wants to see Galway play Limerick in an All Ireland final. I think that the way the kind of trajectory of the league was going, they're the two teams that look to be in the best shape, and they look to be what would be the best contest, I think. And yeah, I'd love to see that. And then I find it impossible to kind of call between the two of them at the moment. Probably based off experience, you'd have to probably go with Limerick with the last couple of years how they've gone. But yeah, I think that's the game everyone wants to see, really.
Yeah, I think me personally, there's three teams that I think I would actually understand why someone picked them to win the All Ireland this year. They are Limerick, Galway, and Kilkenny. I think anything outside of that is a bit ambitious. Cork are very early in the development stage. Waterford have all their injuries. Clare, again, they're only really finding what is their best team. Dublin are too inconsistent. Wexford, were terrible last year, and I don't think they can bounce back that quickly. Tipperary look a bit all over the place, even though they still have elite level hurlers. It's just very difficult to see past a Galway, a Limerick, or a Kilkenny. And to be honest, out of them three, it's so hard because, I think that you would agree, and we stacked them as Limerick top, Galway second, and Kilkenny third in terms of the panel and the ability that they have. But the last championship match between Kilkenny and Galway, Kilkenny won it. The last championship match between Kilkenny and Limerick, Kilkenny won it. So it's hard to bet against Kilkenny.
Yeah, well, I think they're probably a good bet for a semi-final. They usually are kind of they probably are still a little bit short kind of in certain areas. Maybe they're, other than TJ, do they have the absolute marquee forward this year? Their forwards are very good, but yeah, I don't know. They had a great league campaign, and then kind of they had a poor enough loss to Clare, which will probably have set them back a little bit as well. So it's kind of hard to know. I think Waterford, if they can kind of continue to, if they can get those lads back playing that we've talked about already so much, kind of, if you can get them back fit into the team, that 15 is nearly as good as pretty much everyone in the country. So yeah, I wouldn't discount them either from a potential All-Ireland final run too.
Having discussed all of that, I think I can't see past Limerick. I just think they have too much in the tank. But Galway and Kilkenny as serious dark horses to my prediction.
Yep, I think that's definitely fair. And yeah, well, we all know, though, having seen previous years, that the only team that managed to kind of overturn the Limerick Championship game in recent years has been Kilkenny, and that on their day that they'd probably do with the personnel to kind of nullify them as well. So yeah, it'd be an interesting game. I'd be really interested to see if the two of them will play at some stage this year too.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you now, who is your outside shot this year for Hurler of the Year?
So yeah, it's a tough one, kind of because based off form in the league, I think Tony Kelly was probably the best player. But whether Clare kind of go far enough for him to be in consideration, I don't think so. So yeah, I think you got to be looking kind of from between Limerick and Galway. But so yeah, off that basis, I think an outside bet for Hurler of the Year would be maybe Brian Concannon. I think he's just the tallies he's been putting up have been absolutely huge, and he had a really, really good league campaign. And I'm predicting Galway to go all the way to an All-Ireland final this year. So I think I'm expecting him to have a huge year, scoring consistently for Galway. And I think, yeah, if you're looking kind of beyond the kind of the first couple of names and with the lowest odds, I think Concannon might be a decent bet.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's just come on leaps and bounds ever since he got into the Galway senior team. A couple more names I'd love to throw in the hat would be Tom Morrissey from Limerick. I thought he was outstanding last year, and I think he was kind of overshadowed a little bit by Gerard Hegarty. But I think now that Hegarty has got one, I think if Morrissey puts in another stellar year, there might be a bit of a temptation to kind of give him a Player of the Year as well, considering how good he was last year.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a great call. And as well, you look in the rest of that forward line, if Aaron Gallan puts in a few kind of really consistent performances in a row, he's absolutely going to be in contention again. So yeah, I think it's some great calls there. And you look as well, the likes of Conor Whelan from Galway as well, Cathal Mannion are always going to be up there, and then Waterford, Stephen Bennett probably be in contention again, and obviously TJ every single year. Just depending on how far he gets, he's always going to be in contention. So yeah, so I think they're kind of the main names to touch on before, obviously as well, like the Keane Lynches and the likes kind of that are always as well in contention have to be said too.
Yeah, and who would you predict as the top scorer? As hard as that might sound to predict, I think to be honest, it massively depends on who gets the furthest. I think each team has their chief scorer. Like Tony Kelly always gets a certain amount for Clare, Stephen Bennett for Waterford, Patrick Horgan for Cork, TJ for Kilkenny. but I think it depends who gets to the final. Who would you predict to be the top scorer at this point?
Yeah, I think it's going to be either Joe Canning or Aaron Gallan. Probably boring answer because they're the two free takers on the two best teams. But I think it has to be one of them. I think we saw at the end of the league, it's going to be Canning's going to be on the freeze. Not like even if Nyland's on the pitch, Canning will still be on the freeze. So I think, and we saw him kind of moving the full forward a bit. So there's a good chance that he might start adding a few goals into his game. He hasn't really been getting them a championship the last few years. So I'd probably go with Joe Canning.
Yeah, that's definitely a good show. You can never write off Joe. And I think another good show for it is TJ Reid, because I think he scores so much for Kilkenny and he still carries the can for them so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, Stephen Bennett probably, like, he might, even in a game, he probably play a game less than the other leading contenders, but considering how much he scores for Waterford every single time, he never fails to, he never seems to be hitting under 10 points in a game. So I think, yeah, you can't rule him out as well, considering kind of the reliance that there is on him as well. So even in a game less, he will be in contention too.
Okay, so that's our predictions for 2021, guys, and our preview of the All Ireland Hurling Championship is done. We will give individual previews for all the semi-finals in the Provincial Championships as well. We cannot wait for them to come about. So we've picked Limerick to win the Munster Championship, Galway to win the Leinster Championship, and Limerick then to win the All Ireland Championship. We hope you guys enjoyed, and take care.